often key to planning a holiday. Plus, of course, you have to have a pocket. And but the issue of safety and security is one that continue to trouble some Nigerians, or indeed many Nigerians, with regard to proceeding on a holiday within the country. Yeah, in addition to that, where are the tour guides and where are the directional signs?
So, in developing and sustaining a robust holiday culture in Nigeria, what is the role of government at the federal, states, and local government levels in all of this, and what is the private sector doing, and not forgetting Nigerians themselves? This is our focus today on Good Morning Nigeria, and we would like to inform you that we also have a second leg of the program with a special tribute to one of Africa's best, late Kofi Annan. Thank you for joining us. We're reaching you live on the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA, Africa's largest TV network. I am Sheung Olagunju.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague Sherwin also welcoming you to the program, at the course of which we shall have our regular complimentary segments, newspaper review, business, sports, foreign, and others. In the meantime, here is Stella Inamiti with the highlights of the morning news. Hi, Stella.
Hello, Kingsley and Shil. Good morning and welcome to the news. The Muslim faithful across Nigeria joined their counterparts the world over in commemorating Eid el-Kabir, otherwise known as the Feast of Sacrifice. President Muhammadu Buhari performed the celebration with his kith and kin in the ancient town of Daura, Katsina State. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports that ecstasy greeted the observance of the annual ritual in the president's country home.
I hope the rainy season will be as good as the two previous ones, so that there will be plenty of food, so that we may even completely stop importation of most of the food items.
Youth Corps members serving in Daura, Katsina State are passionately appealing to the younger generation across Nigeria to not only appreciate but genuinely support the revolutionary initiatives being implemented by President Muhammadu Buhari for their sake and sustainable future of the country. This was while paying a solidarity visit to the president at his Daura residence as part of the Salah celebrations.
The voice of people is the voice of God. Baba, inshallah, be ignorant Rahman. 2019, you are there.
The state is the beginning and the end of Nigeria. That is not so. This is Nigeria. You are welcome to Daura. I hope you are enjoying it. And I wish you the best of luck.
And in Sokoto, thousands of Muslims converged on the central Eid ground to offer this year's Eid el-Kabir prayer, which was attended by the President of the Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs and Sultan of Sokoto, Abubakar Saad III.
سمع الله لمن حمده اللهم ربنا لك الحمد.
In Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, Muslims have been taken to the task on the need to reflect on the lessons of Eid el-Kabir celebration, which is sacrifice, love, patience, and obedience to Allah's commandment. Mushid of the Abuja National Mosque, Professor Shehu Saad Galadansi, re-emphasized this in his sermon at this year's Eid el-Kabir prayer. Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Mohammed Musa Bello, joined other worshippers to observe the Eid prayer.
To try to educate and enlighten their people so that the people would cast their votes peacefully.
And he also admonished all of us to continue to fear God Almighty.
Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed was among faithful that converged in Oro Eid praying ground in Kwara State for the observation of the 2 Raka prayers to mark Eid el-Kabir festival.
The administration has delivered on all its promises. It has continued with all inherited projects, roads, bridges, power, water.
And in faraway Saudi Arabia, Nigerian pilgrims at the instance of the National Hajj Commission held a national prayer for peace to reign in Nigeria. Musa Abubakar reports that clerics at the session admonished Nigerians to work and engage in more prayer for the peace and unity of the country.
We have resolved that we are going to pray for peace and good governance of Nigeria.
And I assume every Nigerian here will be praying because our country needs better stability. We need peace.
And that's the news this morning. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Sheung and Kingsley after the break.
Thank you very much for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria. Time to take a look at the financial sector now. And the federal government has expressed its determination to gainfully engage youth in the country. Details of this with Comfort Amodu on Business News.
Good to have you join us. The Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, says the federal government is poised to accelerate the growth of the Nigerian economy through its economic growth plan, while lauding the support and contributions of the World Bank to Nigeria in the area of health, education and water. She said the federal government is evolving measures to sustain the projects, adding that the government is also working towards addressing challenges in the power sector.
For us, as far as GDP growth is concerned, the one thing that's really going to accelerate growth is power. And all the things that we need to do to ensure that we can get that power sector reform package and programme off the ground is really, I think, for us and for the International Economic Relations team, our number one priority at the moment really is power. How do we sort out the challenges in the power value chain? How do we leverage on the World Bank and its relationships and its wealth of experience in getting us to move this sector forward?
In another development, Minister of State for Labour and Employment, Professor Stephen Ochene, said the federal government is determined to tackle issues of unemployment through its skill acquisition program, describing the Nigerian youth as enterprising, hardworking and innovative. He noted that the present administration is evolving measures to ensure that youths are gainfully employed.
And I want to state too that the federal government attaches much importance to youth employment and skill development, as this is one of the key agents of the federal government policy on economic recovery and growth plan of President Muhammadu Buhari.
Still talking employment, the federal government, through its social investment programs, has created job opportunities for more than 500,000 Nigerian youths. This is in addition to other financial facilities by the federal government to support budding micro, small and medium enterprises, among other initiatives to create an enabling environment for business to thrive in the country.
The challenge we then have is really to see how we create systems to facilitate entrepreneurship for our youths. That must go hand in hand with also being able to make them employable for the market, the labor market that's largely driven by the private sector.
Financial markets were closed for business yesterday and today as the federal government declared both days public holidays in commemoration of Eid al-Kabir. We will bring you developments when the NSE opens for trades on Thursday. That's the size of our business package. Many thanks for watching. I'm Comfort Amodu.
Thank you very much, Comfort, for the business package. Next for us now, we go to the front pages of today's newspapers to review the stories.
take of our review with This Day newspaper, and the main headline of the This Day newspaper this morning, Atika, Sultan to youth, use your PVC to elect credible candidates. That's actually a headline on its own with details on page 8. But the main headline on the front page of This Day, with 800-meter walk, Buhari fit for 2019, says presidency. And that's actually the thrust of their picture story as well. And it shows the president walking from the youth home after the prayers. Walking to 2019, he said, President Muhammadu Buhari walks back to his residence after Eid al-Kabir prayer in Dora, Katsina State, yesterday. There are some other headlines on the front page of This Day. PENCOM targets 10% pension assets contribution to GDP. Decries cut in retirees' entitlement by National Assembly. National Assembly Joint Committee still deadlocked on INEC election budget. That's beside the picture story of This Day. That's all I have on This Day for now.
All right. Now, the three papers I have on their front pages the story from Daura. For two of them is the lead story of the president walking back to his residence after the Eid prayers. Let's take a look at the Daily Independent newspaper, and it comes with a kicker. Can we have it on the screen right away? After trekking 800 meters, presidency declares Buhari physically fit for second term. And then there are two riders to that story. President donates 500,000 naira and a bull to core members in Daura, and Lord's Gawan's foresight for establishing NYSC scheme. Now, let's take a look at the photograph there. The photograph, of course, goes across the columns on the front page. You can see the photograph there, the president with a clenched fist, and others accompany him from the Eid ground to his residence. Now, the Leadership newspaper also has that story, and it is lead for the paper. 800-meter trek shows President Muhammadu Buhari fit to recontest, and that's according to the presidency, with two riders. His second term will complete anti-corruption fight. That's according to Lai Mohammed. And Kogi governor urges Nigerians to be patient with president. And then we'll come to the New Telegraph. The New Telegraph has it as photographs on the front page, but there's also a political story as lead. So take a look at the photographs on the front page and then the caption for the photographs. It says, Buhari fit and healthy enough for 2019. That's according to the presidency. And the story above that, of course, is on politics with a kicker, Sage on INEC budget. Buhari will fund 2019 elections regardless of National Assembly approval. Senate, that's the first rider. We are not playing politics with election budget. Another rider, INEC. Nigeria's voter population now 81.5 million. Details of the story can be found on page 5.
Yeah, that same headline is on the front page of the Punch as well. It's a busy front page, but that's not really its major headline. The major headline on the front page of the Punch, Tinubu versus Saraki, talk about 2023 presidency premature. That's according to APC. It has riders. Tinubu shouldn't think North will support him in 2023. Adebanjo. It's not a crime to be ambitious, says Junaid Mohammed. And then on top of the front page of the on the Punch, FG oil majors lose 195 billion naira to pipeline shutdown. Details on page 25. And above the nameplate, Eid al-Kabir, Buhari rules out scrapping of NYSC, observes Salah in Dora. With riders, Sultan urges politicians to sacrifice for peace, unity. Abdusalami to politicians, that's the former head of state, face governance, stop infighting. Serap wants National Assembly presidency, others accounts audited. And the picture story on the front page of the Punch as well is the that of the president leaving the Eid al-Kabir prayer ground at Kofar Arewa in Dora, Katsina State on Tuesday. And then the other picture story there, a cross-section of Muslim faithful praying in the Kuje Area Council of Abuja to mark the 2018 Eid al-Kabir. Now, below that picture stories, Buhari demonstrated fitness for second term by trekking 800 meters, claims presidency. And a pocket of headlines on the front page of the Punch as well. 90% of Africa's illegally imported e-waste dumped in Nigeria. That's a troubling one there. DSS blindfolded held me incommunicado for 2 years. That's according to the freed journalist. Air Force bombs Boko Haram facility, kills scores. Olubadan's letter forced new kings to make peace. That's according to Ladoja. Father accuses undergraduate of stealing severance pay and resign or will force you out. Mieti Allah tells Saraki. Kingsley.
Let's read other.
Politics is everywhere now.
Yeah, it's politics all over. The lead story from the Punch newspaper that you just read is a continuation of the Punch and the counter-punch, from Tinubu to Saraki, and Saraki to Tinubu, Tinubu to Tambuwal, Tambuwal to Tinubu, and of course we had some of the stories earlier on Monday and on Tuesday, all of it coming on the heels of the defection of Tambuwal and Saraki from the APC to the PDP. But the photograph of the president, of course, in Daura yesterday, it's the one that we have seen on the front pages of all the papers, and I'm sure the youth club members themselves will be most delighted that the president has donated a bull to them. That's something they're going to feast on. We hope there will be no stories regarding who got what part, who didn't get what part on account of that. The president, of course, has always feted youth club members. It's become a tradition for him now in the course of the Salah celebration. So congratulations to the club members who are in Daura. There are other stories though, yes, other than politics.
There's one on the top of the front page of the Punch. FG oil majors lose 195 billion naira to pipeline shutdown. We don't want to see that rearing its ugly head again.
Well, we don't know the reason for the pipeline shutdown. The details, of course, will be there unless it's the result of vandalism. Then that again will be worrisome. Of course, for quite some while now, the Niger Delta region has been quiescent. Yeah, it's been quiescent, and production activities have proceeded. There are a few instances here and there of disruptions, but in general, the Niger Delta has been peaceable, and that's been conducive to the operations of the oil companies. Now, New Telegraph is the paper we're going to next. New Telegraph, above the nameplate, you have a story on the economy. NBS, that's the kicker, National Bureau of Statistics. Nigeria's capital importation hits 5.38 billion naira, and portfolio investments spurs inflow by 138.7%. That story is right there. And then towards the towards the foot of the front page of the New Telegraph, there's a story on politics. APC youth boo governor, attack convoy, and alleged imposition of commissioner. Party condemns action. That story is to be found on page 6. The incident took place in Edo State. That's the Edo Central Senatorial District. Stories also in the economy. Let's return to Leadership newspaper. Leadership newspaper, below the nameplate, says Nigeria earned 4 trillion naira from crude export in 2017, with a rider there on capital inflows. Imported rice meant for animals. That's according to the federal government. And then lastly, right there at the foot of the front page of above the strip advert, it says foreign reserves dropped to $46.3 billion, lowest in 5 months. And police arrest killer of Ekiti monarch. That's on page 14.
The killing of that Ekiti monarch was a story trending yesterday. It was alleged that a madman got into the palace and then stabbed the monarch to death and then escaped into the bush. So it's good news to hear that he's been apprehended.
Unfortunately, I mean, you've had some unlawful killings in Ekiti, in recent weeks. There's a former aide to Segun Oni himself who was killed at a viewing center. That was some weeks ago, and this has been followed now by the incidents of the monarch. Unfortunately, these are things that we hope the authorities, will get into and sort out. There are other stories, as we have said, but they are related to politics, and these headlines speak for themselves.
We should just go through editorial. Now we're taking it from the Daily Sun, and it's about the overhaul of SARS. Many Nigerians expressed a sigh of relief last week when a directive was issued by the acting president, Yemi Osinbajo, to the Inspector General of Police, Ibrahim Idris, to overhaul the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS. The acting president had asked the IGP to reorganize the SARS with immediate effect and to restrict its activities to the prevention, detection of armed robbery and kidnapping. And that's what we saw happen when the Inspector General of Police swung into action. There's been a name change, there's been reorganization. It's now Federal SARS, and then it's to be headed by a police commissioner, and then who reports to a DIG and so on. So we just hope that all this now would put to rest all the agitations against this body, because there was actually a movement against it and SARS, which
unfortunately is not likely to put an end to the controversy. This is because last week the National Executive Council met, and one of the resolutions was for governors to seek to come up with ways to further to help decentralize the Nigeria police as it is now. There are questions that have been raised. Yes, the Inspector General of Police has proceeded to comply with the directive of the then acting president, who's back to his regular portfolio now as vice president, to reorganize SARS, but that reorganization isn't sufficient. You cannot have a unitary system in terms of control and command of SARS when the campaign now is for the decentralization of the police force for increased efficiency and effectiveness. As I said, it's unlikely to put the controversy to a close, except, of course, with regard to instances of impunity that we had seen with operatives of SARS, who had, some of them were alleged, of course, to have gone around shaking down young men and women whom they thought were sufficiently well-heeled. All right, Sheil, that's the most that we can take. Let's take a short break now. When we return, of course, we'll get into our conversation.
Time now as we begin our conversation on Nigerians and holiday culture. We'll take a background report put together by Timothy Yusuf.
Year in, year out, Nigerians celebrate a total of 15 public holidays. Christianity and Islam have the country's widely most adopted religious public holidays. The holidays for Christians include Easter and Christmas celebrations, while that of Islam range from Maulud to Salah celebrations. The holidays are, however, not limited to these religious celebrations, as the country also observes some international celebrations such as Workers' Day, New Year, as well as some national commemorations. Are Nigerians actually maximizing the public holidays towards national growth? In other words, what do they do with the public holidays? Are there holiday sites in the country? Do Nigerians have the economic wherewithal to go on holidays both within and outside the country? Is the environment really free and conducive for Nigerians to enjoy the various public holidays? Analysts believe that the occasion of public holidays should go beyond just idling at home while it lasts. The question, therefore, is, how can Nigerians maximize the public holidays to better their lives outside remaining at home?
In our country, there's too much of holidays. There's too much of holidays, which is not even good for a developing nation like us that ought to redouble our effort to build ourselves up to where others are in the world.
I was with the ambassador of Argentina, and as I'm talking to you, she's in Kano to go and watch Durban. She has been planning for this for over 1 month. She called her own daughter to Nigeria for the daughter to witness the Durban in Kano. So these occasions could be turned into business, into venture, because people want to come and see our culture. But we must first of all live in peace. We must first of all love ourselves. We must first of all believe in our country. When we believe in our country and our ability, we believe that we have the potential to bring the world to Nigeria.
All right, now we have guests right here with us in the studios to discuss this issue in further detail. First, we'd like to welcome Mrs. Chika Balogun. She's Director General of the National Institute for Hospitality and Tourism. Mrs. Balogun, pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
All right. Also here with us in the studios is the Public Relations Officer of the Federation of Tourism Association of Nigeria. His name is Joseph Karim. Joseph Karim, pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Also here, Chikezie Oswago, a tourism consultant and CEO of CGSK Tours. Chikezie Oswago, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Thank you very much.
All right. And last but not the least, Mrs. Aderonke Timpson, a travel consultant and CEO of Mantel Travel and Tours. Mrs. Timpson, pleasure to have you join us on the program.
Thank you very much.
All right. Those are the guests that we have. In the meantime, if we do get to be joined by another guest, we'll introduce him via Skype if we're able to make the connection. Let's begin, by taking a look at this issue. Do Nigerians have a holiday culture in or out of the country? Let's begin with Mrs. Chika Balogun, who is the DG of the National Institute for Hospitality and Tourism.
I would say yes, we do have a holiday culture in and out of Nigeria, but not as much as we could actually push to have, especially within domestic tourism, traveling Nigeria and getting to understand our peoples and our cultures much better. It's something that will grow. Tourism is a growing sector. And as we improve what we have to offer in Nigeria in terms of facilities for people to go to festivals, the quality of tourism in Nigeria in general, we'll find that more and more people will be happy to travel Nigeria and rest for a few days. Currently, I think most of us just attend parties, go on picnics and a few things like that when we want to relax and have a holiday, as opposed to actually taking yourself and your family to somewhere quiet and just enjoy nature or enjoy a completely different culture from what you're used to. So I'd continue to encourage Nigerians to travel Nigeria, use our holidays to better understand ourselves and, improve on the economy by keeping the Naira here rather than taking the Naira abroad.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Aderonke Timpson, speak to this. Do we have a holiday culture?
Definitely.
And if so, how does it express itself?
Definitely, Nigerians, we have holiday culture. But our holiday culture, a lot of Nigerians, they want to take their holiday outside the country. In our line of business, we've seen people say, where can they want to travel, they want to go abroad, they want to go with their family, and they want to have vacate, they have to have vacation. And we need, like Madam said, we need to have in Nigeria vacation culture, because we have a lot of destinations in Nigeria that has not even been tapped. You'll be surprised destinations in Abuja alone, where people can just go relax with their family. And also we have good hotels where people can just go and take some time out with their family. See, Nigerians travel out to squat with families, to make themselves so uncomfortable, stressed out, just because they want to go on vacation. Yes, they want to go on vacation, but you go on vacation, you go most of the time shopping, buying, duplicating items you already have. No time to relax.
So where's the culture?
So the culture there is for us in Nigeria to look inwards. They just have this idea that holiday is there basically because maybe children are on vacation, they want to go on vacation, but they still have it because the desire is there, but the destination is the challenge.
We'll be back with you, Mrs. Timpson. We understand now that another of our guests has joined us via Skype from the UK. Lucky George, he is a tourism consultant and a publisher. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. George. You are in the UK, and I know that there's definitely a holiday culture there. By summer, people have gone. Some plan theirs towards the end of the year, and many, or most, plan theirs for summer. So what's your experience with the holiday culture there vis-a-vis what is happening in Nigeria, based on what our other guests in the studio have said?
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me. It's sad that Nigeria, we don't have a a holiday culture. In the sense that because a holiday is predicated on your level of income, it's what you earn and what you are able to put aside that determine whether you should pay your children's school fees, or whether you should support your aged family back home, or you should travel to a destination abroad. Unfortunately, this finances that determines whether you should go on holiday or not. Most Nigerians are way, way below the level where they can save for holiday, or where a culture of holiday has been built over the years. So we're neither there or there. So to answer your question directly, Nigeria is not, Nigerians have not really developed the attitude or the culture of holidaying during summer, except for the few who are well-to-do that can afford to do so. I'm sure the percentage of those who can afford to travel is less than 5%. That is the situation.
Mr. George, that you do not need to travel abroad. You do not need to have a lot of money to be able to take a holiday. Maybe our idea of what a holiday is what? Should we be trying to fix that so that people can relax? I know that some people can't even take weekends off.
If I hear you clearly, money is a factor because you need money to plan for your holiday. And most developed world, like here in the UK or in other part of the world, people plan for their holidays a year ahead. And very few Nigerians can boast of this and perhaps achieve this with attitude. So, in other words, it's difficult for those of us from Africa, especially in Nigeria, who do not earn enough, who do not have the culture, or where the travel industry is so robust, where you are advised to start paying gradually for a holiday that you undertake next year. So traveling abroad is just a factor of those who can afford it. But traveling within Nigeria is what we should encourage. And over the years, attempt has been made to promote domestic tourism, which unfortunately has not really worked. Of course, a lot of you guys in the studio there, you have traveled. I know you very well from your days in your former place of work when you travel across the country covering story. You know how difficult the roads are to travel on. You know how expensive the air tickets are. You know how expensive the Nigerian hotels are. So how many Nigerians can afford it? You know very well Cross River State used to be the much talked about holiday destination in Nigeria. The cost of going to Abuja in Cross River State will take you to South Africa or Nairobi. So how do you juxtapose this? How do you do this? Because you now look at what value can you get from your unearned money that you save that you want to travel on holiday with. So the Nigerian destination, the Nigerian attractions do not give you the value for your money. And that is one of the problems Nigerians are facing. And to those who have the money, they want to go abroad. And it's a matter of choice, and it's a matter of getting value for their money. And I don't blame them. Until we put our attractions in order, until the roads are good enough for more Nigerians to travel within the country, as it is, less than 2% of Nigerians travel on holiday within the country. The reason is that the roads are bad. The transport system is expensive. Of course, we're not talking of the airlines. So these are some of the challenges we're facing.
All right, Lucky George, thanks a lot. Let's pause you in the meantime. We'll return to you in the course of the conversation. There are two other guests with us here in the studios who would like to get their take on this. Chikezio Swago, who is a tourism consultant. Of course, you've listened to the other guests. By the way, what is a holiday? And therefore, how does a holiday culture evolve?
Thank you very much. I was expecting that, and I really like to put holiday, vacation, and travel in proper perspective. Holiday usually, well, in the UK, where we derived our English language from, is an opportunity for people to be off work or major activities that they are usually engaged in. So school holiday, work holiday, and usually for work holiday, it doesn't last more than 2 days or whatever. School, then vacation. Then vacation is a derivative from the United States. They're usually interwoven. They are synonyms. when people talk generally. Travel is a different aspect of it. Now, what do you do during those times? The holiday period or the vacation period is another thing again. You can do your holiday within your vacation period. So within that vacation period, you're also on holiday, depending on where you are talking from. But for Nigerians, looking at various holidays we have, they are also aspects of our culture. A culture is a people's way of life. So our holidays are derived from our culture, traditional festivals, or are related to our traditional festivals, our religion, then the work environment. So during festivals, we have holidays. Salah festivals, Salah, which is a Muslim festival. During Christmas festival, Christmas period, we have a holiday. These are aspects that we need to understand. Nigerians go on holiday. Nigerians go on vacation. And the holiday period, which are specified for us, as far as I'm concerned, are not enough. Cambodia has 28 days in the year. The US has about 15. Nigeria has about 15. South Africa has about 12. We need more. People rejuvenate after these holidays. They go out. Sometimes they rest. Sometimes they stay at home. But then, if you're talking of travel within this balance, you don't need to go outside Nigeria to enjoy that vacation period. For us in the East, we go for a festival called Mango Festival, Iriji Festival. For people in the North, they go for the Durbar Festival, Salah Festival. For the people in the West, they go for Osun Osogbo Festival, Christmas Festival, so many other things. These periods are holidays. Nigerians do it. What we are saying is, let people explore destinations even within Nigeria during these holidays. I just came back from the East. I went for the festival, the Iriji Festival. People from Plateau State, they can drive down to Plateau. People even living in Abuja can get outside the city center and go to the hinterlands. Yes, we have issues, roads, infrastructure, this and, but I can tell you, these things are there in so many environments where people even go for holidays or for vacations, wherever you're taking it from. So Nigerians have a holiday culture, but we need more of this.
Well, Chikezi, thank you very much. Let's not conflate the issues. Our topic has to do with Nigerians and holiday culture. And it doesn't have to do whether we have too many holidays in a calendar year or otherwise. We're talking about holiday, the synonym being vacation. You know, how do you take a break from your regular schedule, whether you're a student or whether you're a worker? You know, if you're a worker
should have a leave.
That's right. I mean, it's part of the legal regulations of work that you cannot work 365 days in a year. You take a break off it. And when you take that break, how do you spend it? Travel is integral to it. But let's bring in Joseph Karim now, get his own perspective. He's Public Relations Officer, Federation of Tourism Association of Nigeria. If you want to expatiate on holiday culture and holiday concept, let us have it.
Yeah, sure. We do have a holiday culture as a people, as Nigerians. But I think we are mixing up a tourism culture and holiday culture. Typically, like your reporter, Timothy Yusuf, just presented the report. We have the Christmas holidays, the New Year, the Salah breaks and all. During these holiday periods, that's when families that are living in the urban centers usually go back to their roots, right, and meet with their families and all. Now, the difference for us in the industry is that it has no, that travel usually has little economic multiplier effect for the operator in the industry, because usually when we travel for such holidays, we stay with families, friends, and relatives, right? Generally. So we do have a holiday culture. When students are on vacation, and for every national public holiday, Abuja is almost almost empty all the time. It is if you want to compare, do we actually go out for tourism? That's the issue, because travel is just a movement from one point to another. It is part of tourism, but tourism is when you actually travel, get an accommodation for at least one night, and involve yourself in activities that you probably pay money to enjoy those services. That's what is described as tourism, succinctly, right? So that is it. But your question about holiday culture, Nigerians do have holiday culture. We travel during vacations.
What is the relationship between tourism and holiday culture?
Well, holiday is a little part of tourism, because you can go on holiday without spending so much money. That's when the money factor comes in, because tourism is actually income elastic. So, but you can go on holiday, for instance, and spend very small money. But if you actually want to go travel as a tourist, you must have saved some money. That's why you just mentioned earlier that when you work, in some other climes, when you work, there's a particular month, a whole month, that you save towards to travel out or within, just to go and rest, not to stay with family or friends at all. Absolutely. You involve the services of tourism service providers.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Let's come back to Mrs. Balogun now. Nehoto, what does it really do to encourage Nigerians to take advantage of our numerous tourism centers, so that we can start improving, don't let me say develop now, improving on our holiday culture? Because like I said before, some people can't even take weekends off.
Yes, absolutely. Our mandate in NIHOTOR is to develop capacity for the industry. So we're trainers for hospitality, travel and tourism, trades in Nigeria. We're also the Sector Skills Council and a host of other things. So for us, it's building capacity. I think part of the reasons, Lucky George just mentioned value for money. Part of the reasons why some Nigerians would probably prefer to take the same amount of money to South Africa, for instance, or Ghana, is because of the issue of value for money. And value for money comes from the services, the quality of services rendered to people when they travel around Nigeria. It's been a concern for the industry over time, but NIHOTOR is concertedly working on it to improve the quality of training. A lot of other schools have also come on board, Wavecrest and a few others. We continue to encourage the industry, especially people who are core professionals, to set up training schools. The bill that NIHOTOR currently has gives us the power and mandate to certify and register all the personnel within the hospitality, travel and tourism trades. This, first of all, will give us data of what capacity we currently have and what level of qualification there is. It also states that training is now mandatory. It's no longer business as usual where your cousin can lay a bed or can speak English and you put them at the front desk to speak to clients. No. Now you need to go get trained and deliver quality of service to the people who are paying for those services. So NIHOTOR is going to constantly escalate the issues concerning training. You're only as good as the last training you have. And that is the reason we're having certain challenges in Nigeria. And I'm hopeful that in the next 2-3 years, it will become a thing of the past. Most of the people who own properties in Nigeria, because there was no law stating that it was compulsory to have training, they understand the value of training, but of course training is not cheap. So some have shied away from it, and some of the professionals, quote and unquote, come with papers that are not correct, and the property owners have a hard time trying to process if Mr. So-and-so has actually been to training. They have a paper saying they have been. Now the onus will be on NIHOTOR to do that check and let the hospitality and travel industry understand those who are actually trained. Now, coming back to the holiday culture, as a member of the tourism family, we constantly preach Nigeria, travel Nigeria. The Presidential Council on Tourism has been reactivated by the Honorable Minister Alhaji Lai Mohammed. this council seeks to pull together all ministers who are part of the value chain of tourism: transportation, aviation, roadworks, housing, you know, the entire, because if we look at just the tourism minister, he is limited in what he can do to better, you know, affect the entire value chain. So the Presidential Council on Tourism brings together all the ministers to understand that we need roads to Idori. We need roads to, you know, certain places. For instance, this Christmas, Onitsha is going to be hosting a Golibe festival for the first time from the 24th, I think, to the 31st of December. The idea is to bring people from all over the world, you know, to come back home, and then Nigerians as well from all over Nigeria to come to Onitsha for 1 week for this festival. That in itself is a vacation. And I do believe that it's not only when you actually take a room in a hotel. Going to a buka, going to a palm wine joint, you know, like all of us do, is part of the tourism value chain. The issue is we don't gather data. We're still at infancy with gathering data. So I truly believe that the value tourism brings to Nigerian GDP is way higher than is currently assumed. And that's because we don't yet have the right data. I know the Honorable Minister is working with the UNWTO on setting up data gathering mechanism that allows us to then know what the value tourism truly brings to the family. But our promise at Naihotour is to further strengthen the quality of training that we give to the people who work in the industry, and to push and push and push with our stakeholders for them to make sure that they train their staff.
In terms of training, what are the most obvious gaps you find in the meantime?
Very small things, very, very small things. Communication, very small things like communication. You walk into most hotels, communication gaps are there. You know, they either can't address the client properly, they can't understand what the client is trying to communicate and therefore meet those needs. Simple things like a checklist, you know, to know that you clean this toilet, for instance, every 3 hours. A checklist, a simple thing like a checklist that has the names of all of us, and we must sign if we've cleaned it. You know, very simple things, you know, are the areas where we truly fail. Most of our properties are beautiful, and the owners have spent a lot of money buying the right furniture and all of that. But the skills gap, very simple skills gap, of where we truly have a lot of problems with. And that's all to do with training. A young man doesn't know that you know, he's supposed to wipe the table after he takes off your glass. He leaves it. There's a mark on the table. And then you come 2 days later, you're wondering, why is this place looking like this? And then we really also don't appreciate accessible tourism. A lot of the properties are built without real planning in terms of for people who are physically challenged. So again, we completely, almost immediately, take out a section of our population because they can't go to hotels. The light switch is too high for him on his wheelchair. There's no ramp for his wheelchair to go in and out. Very simple things like this. But we're working at that as well at the National Mirror Committee for Tourism. It's an ISO committee on standardization for Nigeria. We're beginning to adapt certain standards, and we're hoping to work on so many more this year. Part of those standards will be a real focus on accessible tourism. Like one of the young chaps from their group said to me, he said, "Madam, everyone is physically challenged at one point in time or the other." He gave me an example. He said, "Madam, go to Russia. Do you speak Russian?" I said, "No." He said, you walk out of the airport in Russia and all the signs are in Russian language, no English anywhere. You speak to someone in English, they respond in Russian and say, you know, they can't understand you. Immediately you're in trouble. Instantly you are disabled. So that we look at disability just purely from the point of physical disabilities, but there's quite a lot. If I'm Yoruba and I go to Onitsha, for instance, and no one can explain to me anything, I don't find anyone, instantly I'm looking for the next vehicle, if I can find one out of Onitsha. You know, so there are quite a lot of issues. We must work on our standardization, and then we must engage the stakeholders to execute, because it's one thing to say Nigeria has adopted 1, 2, 3, 4 standards, beautiful, laudable, but execution, which falls to the stakeholders.
All right, Mrs. Balogun, thank you very much. Let's return to Lucky George, who's with us via Skype. If we can get him back on the screen, right, you can see him there on the right-hand side. Give us a sense from your perspective of what perhaps we will need to do, particularly from the side of the operators, in order to help give a boost to a holiday culture, vacation or tourism, or however you may wish to call it, so that we get away from what is clearly observable now, that you have tour operators, some of them, who do no more than sell tickets to you. They have no connection with transporters, whether by land transportation, rail transportation, air transportation. They have no connection whatsoever with accommodation providers. They have no connection, with the destinations that they are selling you a ticket to go to. How can we get away from this current silo mentality and have an integrated approach? I'm sure if you walked into any tour operator and said, listen, this is where I want to go to, you will have a clear roadmap as to what you would do, what discounts you would get, what the challenges would be, and you can anticipate it and have a proper contract.
Thank you for having me back. I think there is a problem here. There's a lack of understanding of how the tourism industry works. Let me take, for instance, Zimbabwe. The country is promoted as a whole package. It is the duty of government, the government of Nigeria, to sell, to articulate, and put together what we should sell to Nigerians as domestic tourism consumption, and of course to international tourists who are willing to visit. Unfortunately, the Ministry of Tourism and of course the Nigerian Tourism Development Corporation has not been able to define and articulate what we should put together and sell to Nigerians. How many times have you seen NTDC adverts? That is the sales and promotion agency of the Nigerian government when it comes to tourism on even NTA. They don't. So what is done all over the world, it is the responsibility of government first and foremost to articulate what it has to sell and how it wants to sell it, either for domestic consumption or for international consumption. So this is where it starts from. The issue of the tour operators and the travel agent is even immaterial here, because it's only when people are coming that the tour operators are making money. At the moment, what we have, we are only pushing tourists to other parts of the world. We are a tourist generating market. We generate tourists for other parts of the world. We don't receive. What we receive as tourists is insignificant. We cannot put a figure on it to say this is what we have. And I can tell you from what FAN and the airport authority have released over the year is the number of travelers. They don't single out how many are Nigerians or how many are Nigerians returning home. So this is a problem. I wish you have COCA, the DG of the Nigerian Tourism Development Corporation, to tell us what it's doing. It's been there for a while now. Have you seen a single advert on the papers promoting one attraction or the other? The answer is no. So people that have been appointed to do their jobs must be held accountable and must be seen as doing their job. Everywhere in the world, I've been educating Nigerians over the years. It is the responsibility of the Nigerian government to promote Nigeria as a destination to either to foreigners or even within the country. This is what is done all over the world. I have been involved in several countries. I was the National Publicity Secretary of the Tourism Federation in Nigeria. I was a member of the Abuja Carnival Committee some years back. I was a member of the task force set up by ECOWAS. And I can tell you, it's only Nigeria that we don't get it right. I pity the woman talking there because our own is to train. But I can tell you, in our own aspect, she has achieved some results. But I can tell you in the area of marketing and promotion, which is at the crux of the matter, what are we doing to get more Nigerians to travel within Nigeria? The roads are bad, I've just told you. The airline ticket, where is our national carrier? How many Nigerians can afford to fly one-way ticket to Calabar for 45,000 naira? The other day I was going to Calabar because I didn't buy ticket a month ahead. I ended up paying 42,000 naira. So how many Nigerians can afford to do that? So until we have a national carrier that is coming up now, it will simplify the mode of travel, to bring down the cost of travel for a lot of Nigerians so that the tour operators we talked about will be able to have jobs to do. At the moment, how many tour operators are really in business? There are no real tour operators in Nigeria. They are all travel agents, like you rightly pointed out. So until the government, and of course, eventually when the government set up what we call our tourism industry, like the way it's done all over the world, it is only then that the private sector can key in. Tourism is not the responsibility of the private sector. The Nigerian elite has, or the so-called economists at the tourism experts have misled the Nigerian government over the years, and we must retrace our route. What we must do is to ensure that the government takes back its tourism industry. And don't forget, when we made tourism and information and culture together, that took away the strength and the character of the tourism industry. Having a tourism ministry does not take anything away from our budget, does not take so much money from the system, rather to add more value. We need our Ministry of Tourism and Culture back. That is what we must start from. Again, I ask the question, where is the Director General of the Nigerian Tourism Development Corporation, Folani Koka? Because when you are discussing a national issue like this, that has been seen all over the world, that has been watched by all Nigerians, we must ask question, where is Folani Koka? And that is one answer I need from you.
George, thanks a lot for your perspective, but I would like to, the question I put to you, I would like the other guys here in the studio here to also respond to that question. I'm coming to Mrs. Aderonke at Timson. When are we going to have tour operators get away from the current practice of probably just being nothing but on sales agents, you know, for airlines? Sell tickets, get your commission, and that's the end. If you're looking for package tours, you know, it is not, I mean, when you say holiday, if you break it down, you can walk into, you know, the offices of a tour operator and say, listen, I'm planning my vacation for 2 weeks at such and such a place. What advice can you give me? What do I need to do? Why is it that we don't have such services in Nigeria on a continuous basis, not in Abuja, in different parts of the country? You have no connection with hoteliers, you have no connection with ground transport operators, no connection with airlines, no connection with train. And we're thinking of having the structured holiday culture?
Well, thank you very much. That is the next phase of our business. Because a travel agent that is just on ticketing very soon will be out of business. When you go into a professional travel agent, tour operator, must have contact with hotels, the standard of hotels, must have connection with the car, vehicle, airport taxis, buses, then must be able to package a 2-day, 3-day, 4-day tour. Right now, some of our colleagues are still in ticketing because that is the basis, that is how they started. But the world is changing, and we have to change with time, because hotels in Nigeria, I want to tell you, they are fantastic. But each time, as a person, as a company, when we have international guys coming in to look into, first thing I check, which puts some of us off, is their beddings. You can't hardly get a hotel that has, I'm sorry, that's my opinion, but that's what I've seen. No, these sheets that are really sparkling clean.
And you say they are fantastic?
No, I'm trying to, where I'm going is this. So, but with working with them now, we are encouraging them. When we go in to check, we say, can you put this in order? Can you put this in order? And for your car, can you make sure your air conditioners are working? Because when Nigerians want to come home, I tell you, Nigerians want to come home. A lot of Nigerians out there want to come visit their family. Some, they don't even have, they don't want to stay with family and members. They just want to stay in an hotel and spend their holiday, then go back home. And you have to tell them, these guys, they are Nigerians, yes. Let's say we are looking at Nigerians coming home right now, not even the visitors once in a while. They've been out for a while, and they've seen the other side of the world. They need comfort. So we should, as tour operator, be able to package a comfortable tour program for them. Apart from visiting your family, there are destinations, there are places you can visit. There are places you can go, like Madam said, joints, buka, all these hot spots, nights out, arrange night outs for them. They don't want to just come and stay.
Night out, including point and kill.
Wow. I'm telling you, and it's so nice because it's a story they will never finish talking about. So we call you, madam, if you are arranging another thing, you remember that place we visited? I say yes. They don't need all those Oyibo, I'm sorry if I put it that way, those Western world. They really want to come home and enjoy that Nigerian culture vacation, and they will forever live with it. And I want to encourage our colleagues, just do one program at a time. Package program. We have lovely places in Abuja, in Lagos, in Calabar. Places you get there, you'll be shocked that this thing is just wasting away. We need adventure. You know, Nigerians, we have to get that adventurous spirit that, yeah, I must find out. I'll tell you something. Hiking is wonderful. And you can do hiking. I love hiking. And you can hike as vacation. You just come after 2 days with your family. We arrange. You can arrange to just go on a hike 1 or 2 days. And it's something you don't normally do.
When you hike up, you'll be able to hike down.
Yes, you can. You can. It's nice.
These are all lofty ideas. So I'm just going to go to Chikeze now. These are all lofty ideas that we just, once even hearing about it, you start dreaming about it. But there are a lot of factors inhibiting this. Everybody would like to take some time off and just relax, view the sceneries, but there's, like I said, and like some of our guests have been saying, there are a lot of inhibitions. For example, there are so many issues affecting a lot of families. Let's put population. It might seem insignificant, but if somebody has 6 to 8 children and then the wife is there, how do you carry everybody and say, we want to go to this place? Then there are also some religious influences too. You want to go and watch Osun Osogbo Festival and somebody is telling you are going for idolatry. It's not in tandem with your religion. There are so many issues. How do we overcome these issues so that we can enjoy life?
Thank you. First of all, I need to state here that there's a difference between tour operator and travel agent. Some companies combine both, so they have capacity to do both. A tour operator packages the tour. You pay one price. So he does the visa advisory, travel advisory, accommodation, hotel flights, excursions, tours, everything, cruises. He does it, or the company does it for you. The travel agent sells a ticket, but he can also sell the tour that has been packaged by a tour operator. We'll go into that if the time permits. For your last question, a family that has 6 people, 6 children and mother and father, that's 8 of them. A lot depends on planning. You have to plan. You don't just start, oh, I want to go on holiday today. It's going to be very expensive for you. Even if you're traveling abroad, you're going to pay the price as at that day. But if you say, look, you discuss with your wife and the children, we want to go on holiday or want to go on vacation, be it just outside Abuja, be it Plateau State. There's a snake farm, I understand, just around the corner. There are so many things around the corner. You plan for it. That's why some tour operators, like my company, we have this PSS. It's a new concept, pay small, small. Backstage, DJ and I were talking about pay now, buy now, pay later. Madam, credit is difficult these days. So what we have done is pay small, small.
Once you're done, it's...
Yes, pay small, small. You pay 25% to the tour operator and tell him, look, after looking at all the packages that he or she has or they have, you decide the one that you can afford in the next 4 or 5 months. You make a deposit, which is a commitment, and they put together things for you. And then the next 2 months or 1 month, you pay another 25 or 30%. Subsequently, just a week to the time or 2 weeks to the time, you pay the balance. That way, you tie it to your income. But it must not be, when we talk vacation, everybody thinks abroad. For God's sake, it's not everybody that can afford these vacations abroad. So for people who can afford, well, it's up to you. You want to do that, go ahead. But for people who cannot afford that, take time off. 2 days, 3 days, 4 days off work. Go, take your family out, especially during this vacation, the holiday, school holiday periods. Take your children out. Take them to a place. If you're living in Onitsha, you're living in Calabar, you're living in Uyo, you're living in Kano, you're living in Kaduna, there are places close by that you can take your family to, but you must have planned it. That's the difference between us and the foreigners who plan their vacations. And you see some foreigners, when they go on vacation, they don't carry their cell phones. But our people, we have our laptop with us, even at the beach. So let's come back to the basics. Let's see our environments first. I know the infrastructure is a problem for us. Roads, power, and security. Concerns. Yes, security concerns. But then there are places that you can still explore without having these issues. I tell you, one of the very unfortunate situations we had, 2003, we had a group of Italian gentlemen that came to Nigeria, a professor and a group of people came. They came to watch butterflies in Nigeria. You can imagine such a thing. We took them to 3 locations in Nigeria, just behind Zuma Rock, one near Calabar, and then one near Kwei in Kaduna State. They were so excited. The next time they planned to come with 27 people. 3 days before that, 6 a.m. in the morning, my staff called me that this professor called. There's a bomb blast in Bauchi. And one of the places we had planned for them to go was to go to a particular place near Gombe to watch the butterflies because we identified the locations they needed. And that trip was cancelled. They had to go to Madagascar. But the man told me that the first night of watching butterflies in Abuja, just near Abuja, was his best night watching butterflies. In 20 years, he has watched butterflies all his life.
Yes, that's fine. I mean, there's no doubt about it that we have, there are some challenges that impede domestic tourism and indeed cross-border tourism. But in terms of packaging your holiday or your vacation, internally or otherwise, I want to repeat that question, this time to Joseph Karim. Yes, you try to make a distinction, Chike tried to make a distinction between travel agents and tour operators. Those who are familiar with these things will say, look, it's a distinction without a difference. Do tour operators themselves even have the capacity to package a tour? A few years ago, I saw some open roof double-decker bus in Abuja. I haven't seen that now. Maybe they took it back to London or somewhere. I haven't seen it anywhere else. And there are other tourism locations. If I say, look, package a tour for persons who are coming to Lokoja, for instance, can somebody do that? Or package a tour to some other location. We have foreigners pouring in here every day. Why is it that we have tour operators who are operating mainly in silos?
Okay, great. I am a tour operator myself. I'm not a travel agent. Now, we have lots of structural issues when it comes to the business in Nigeria. But what you are encountering, sir, is that we have lots more of travel agents than tour operators. And there's a problem with the nomenclature. You see travel and tours. Most travel agencies are XYZ, travel and tours, travel and tours. Meanwhile, they are only capable of doing the ticketing and not the tours, right? For you to be a tour operator, you must have the knowledge and contacts with different service providers for you to be able to put together different individual services together into a single package. So that is a challenge. It is a lack of the knowledge of packaging these tours. So it is easier for you to go onto a computer system, right, and book a ticket than to package a tour, because you have to individually interact with those service providers, get excellent rates, right, and sell it as a product. So 90% of the travel companies in Nigeria are actually travel agents. Forget that you see travel and tours on their signage. They don't have the wherewithal to do tours, really. There are very few tour operators. I have an online tour operating company, holidaynigeria.ng. We have tours to different parts of Nigeria for 5 days, for 3 days, for 1 week, for 2 weeks. Name it, every part of Nigeria we have full inclusive tour packages. So, but be that as it may, Lucky George said something very, very important. Part of the challenge that we have that is hampering domestic tourism in Nigeria is Nigerians themselves do not know where are the tourist destinations themselves. So we end up going outside when we can actually get a cheaper tour package in Nigeria. That's a challenge. Most of us do not know. So we have to come up with a marketing strategy for tourism in Nigeria. That is our biggest albatross. There is little knowledge about places to go to in Nigeria, either as a family or as a business person that has just 2 days just to go and spend. Right? People are totally in the dark as per where to go and see. Sometimes you have these tourists, inbound tourists, when they come in, they tell you they spent hours online searching for tour operators in Nigeria. They only see travel agents. You understand? So we have lots and lots.
And that's the area you people in that line should work on so that we can...
We saw recently what happened with some young persons who went to Russia for the World Cup and how they got abandoned, you know, on account of, I don't know, some misdeeds that occurred with regard to their ticketing. And just sell ticket, collect your commission, you're on your own. All right, we have reactions coming in from our viewers, and these are by way of tweets. They've used our Twitter handle. You can see it on the screen there at NTAGMN. Let's take the tweets.
Yes, a King's Dada says, holiday culture could be cultivated from elementary years. Nigerian pupils don't appropriately utilize holidays. They take stretches of classes or help in routine businesses of parents. It can't be different when they are adults. The culture should change.
Dele Jack Solomon has this tweet. Most Nigerians must learn how to take some time off work for vacation, at least 2 times in a year, aside the national holidays. This is because Christmas and New Year and Salah holidays are only periods most Nigerians take time to relax. Holidaying is good for the body and soul.
Cecilia Okoroma says, let us not preach the culture of traveling abroad as the real way of enjoying holiday. How many foreigners come to Nigeria on holiday?
Awunoji Joshua tweets, dwindling purchasing power is a threat to our holiday culture, even within the same city or state, but the culture is good to our economy and integration.
And Festus Akimboyewa says, with our country recovering from recession and millions of people jobless and in poverty, the fiscal impact of many public holidays in Nigeria should be a concern to our treasury keepers and Nigerians. Time government at all levels know that public holidays cost our economy a fortune.
Sani Michael Omakoji tweets now that there are no tourist places to visit in Nigeria to enjoy a holiday is not completely true. We do have more than enough, but how do you expect Nigerians who are living below $1 a day to go for holiday? What a reality is that our standard of living is poor.
And in other parts of the world, that's according to Dele Jack Solomon, local travel and visitation are considered part of development, the gift of recreation and bonding with an end result to help connect national unity, encourage rural economic development, generate and sustain cultural revival, provide platforms for stress-free living and love for humanity. Sadly, we haven't taken holiday culture seriously in Nigeria. We must learn from the developed world like the US, UK, Spain, Israel, and then so many others, even Kenya. Thank you very much.
Kenya cannot be even. I mean, tourism is one of the sources of their income. And Lucky George...
I'm sure he said even because it's Africa as well.
Yeah, well, Lucky George, joining us via Skype, was talking about Zimbabwe earlier. And I should maybe buttress the point he's making because I want to pose my next question to Mrs. Chika Balogun, who is DG of the Institute for Hospitality and Tourism. We were saying, listen, Zimbabwe, this is how they package their tours. At a time, and it still is, Zimbabwe was a global financial basket case. You could see, I mean, you had a banknote that was some 1 trillion Zimbabwean dollars, but they still managed to keep certain aspects of their tourism. If you went to the Victoria Falls area, for instance, they managed to keep that. And one of the critical elements that you need for tourism, medical rescue services. Mrs. Timsey was talking about hiking. I said, if you hike up and you hike down, what happens? I mean, you can have a fall. I mean, a tourist can have a fall or a hiker can have a fall. What are the medical support services available? That's why my question is going to Mrs. Chika Balogun. when we look at the entire value chain for holidaying, let's not just say tourism now, for holidaying, you're already seeing aspects, for instance, with relating to accommodation, the kind of nuisance that you will find with a hotel, bed bugs or unruly staff or who don't just know what to do, prices of items that are scandalously high. But these other aspects are critical. Transportation, ground transportation, air transportation. Are you also thinking about this medical air rescue services? And indeed, the tour operators themselves, not travel agents, how do you get them to eject them from ticketing mode into tour operator mode?
Thank you very much. At NIHOTA, we actually have a tour operations program, as one of our certificate all the way to postgraduate diploma training programs. So I do believe that the core of it is training. A lot of people get into the tourism business as ticketing agents or tour operators, quote and unquote, without the requisite training. Many of them open their businesses and then start to look for someone who has IATA certification to help them even do the ticketing in the first instance. Nothing falls from heaven. You must train yourself to understand the different segments of what you need to do. Chike said to us that you need to communicate with the people who have the hotels, transport companies and all of that. Seek for discounted rates because that's what you're offering to me as a tour package. Otherwise, there's no point coming to you. And then put it together in a holistic manner that still gives me a final tag price that is cheaper than if I went to source those individual items myself. And then follow through on that particular tour until I come back and give a commendation for the services that you rendered to me. But you won't know that just waking up and deciding I want to be a tour operator. You need to get trained. And after your formal training, you need to do internship with a proper business who is already operating that way. Quite a lot of times we overlook the very core importance of internship. Most people get into business and think they already know it. I'd advise that people who want to become tour operators, after you do your formal training, do your internship with a company that is already doing it, even if it's for as little as 3 months. It lets you understand the back end of the business and the front end of the business. It gives you very easily contacts within the business for you to be able to further develop your own. When it comes to medical evacuation issues or challenges in Nigeria, I'd say that that's an area that we're still at infancy. It's not something that has been put together in a holistic sense. Most of us still either pray when we're ill, don't even know our medical stats. So my heart is not good, I have no clue, I go hiking, I don't come back. And then we say my village people killed me because I went to the village last week, and all of that. So we need to as well move away from some of our impeding cultural norms and begin to become more realistic, more in tune with the 21st century. Then those services will improve. Because if you're a medical person, for instance, and you bring in the ambulances, you bring in the helicopters, you bring in everything, put together a good investment package and get investors to get into your business, how many uptakers would you have? Because the people who are supposed to pay for your business or take up your business are praying, and we've reduced everything to going to mountains and going to rivers. And the reality is that God says wisdom profits to direct, and without knowledge my people perish. We're supposed to get knowledgeable, we're supposed to train our minds and develop our businesses as first go-to. And that area is certainly not yet developed in Nigeria.
Sheol, that's one point. I know you're itching to say something. One area, again, we'd like the guests to speak to this. Ratings for facilities, say accommodation. Where, if you meet a tour operator or let's say a travel agent, I want to travel to some location in Nigeria, that's available. What are the accommodation facilities that I would encounter? 1 star, 2 star, 3 star? Everybody brags about being 5-star, this, 2-star. Everybody just brags. When are we going to have standardization of, accommodation facilities?
When you get there, a 4-star hotel is nothing. It
looks sometimes lower than an inn.
Yes, I'll take that first and say that it is a challenge because there's this gray area in terms of where tourism is placed. To my mind, it should be placed at the doorstep of states. And when we say states, not even as state governments, but as local governments, because tourism is local, it's community-based. But there must be intense collaboration with the federal, or with the federal government, because otherwise, how then do you connect interstates and taxation and all of those issues? But that slight gray area has caused a lot of I should be the person doing it, and we're putting away partnerships and collaboration at the feet of ego. So I'd like to speak to our state governments and the federal government, especially my colleagues at the NTDC, because they are supposed to help us with classification. You know, I do believe that NTDC is working very closely now, because I saw some minutes of some of the programs they're working on to collaborate with state governments in terms of doing classification within their various properties in their states. It's ongoing, and I look forward to a time when somewhere says they're 3-star, they actually are 3-star. Again, with the work we're doing at the NMC, the standardization requirements will now be, for everyone to see and know. You can't give yourself a rating. Your rating must come from an agency, either a private sector agency. It's not even compulsory that it's a government-owned agency, but it must be an agency that the entire stakeholders have confidence in, that to do the right auditing and then give the right classification. So my prayer is that between the NTDC...
Oh, you are praying as well?
Yes, we're Nigerians, so we have to pray, but my prayer is always very progressive. So my prayer is that the ongoing, because it is ongoing, the ongoing collaboration between the NTDC, the NMC, and the state governments would see us having in the next 1 year the right classification for our hotel industry.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Balogun, Mrs. Chika Balogun, the DGA National Institute for Hospitality and Tourism. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. And we also had join us Joseph Karim, Public Relations Officer, Federation of Tourism Association of Nigeria. He is also here with us in our Abuja studio. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And Chikeze Oswago is a tourism consultant. He also elaborated on the issues we brought up today. Thank you very much, Chika. And Mrs. Adirunke Timsing, a travel consultant, CEO, Mantle Travel and Tours. Thank you very much for joining us, madam. And via Skype from the UK, Lockie George, tourism consultant and a publisher. We appreciate your input also. Thank you very much. We'll take a short break now. We will be taking our second discussion after the break. And joining us now to discuss the lives and times of Kofi Annan is Ambassador Usman Serki. Is the former Deputy Permanent Representative of Nigeria to the United Nations. Thank you very much for joining us, Your Excellency.
Thank you.
And also in the studio with us, Dr. Obadiah Melafia, former Deputy Governor of the CBN and a Public Affairs Analyst. Thanks for joining us once again in the studios. Well,
all right, let's begin with Ambassador Usman Serki. Kofi Annan has gone home at the age of 80. Yeah. What are your lasting impressions of him?
Dignity. He conveyed and exuded a dignity that is rarely captured in a high-profile public figure of his stature. And that dignity, coupled with humility, endeared him to everybody that he came in contact with. And I think that was the strongest trait or attribute that he had that enabled him to make people relaxed, composed, and calm when they were with him. And that gave him mileage in persuading other world leaders to see his point of view and accommodate different opinions that he was giving them in terms of convincing them to settle differences. And I think that was the hallmark of a great diplomat. And that dignity is what I think the lasting impression I had of him, apart from the accomplishments he did in office, which we'll hopefully speak about later.
And Dr. Melafia, you tell us about this man, Kofi Annan.
Well, actually, unlike the ambassador, I never had the privilege of meeting him in person. But, you know, I followed his career very closely. He struck me as a man of great dignity, as he said, always calm under pressure. I've read a lot about him and followed very
closely his career. I think that he was not just an ambassador for Ghana, he was an ambassador for West Africa, he was an ambassador for Africa. People forget that Kwame Nkrumah, when Ghana got independence in 1957, Kwame Nkrumah believed in this idea of African personality. So he identified very bright young men and young women and sent them to the best schools in the world, sent them to places like Harvard, MIT, Oxford, Cambridge. And Kofi Annan was one of those people. He groomed them to showcase the best that Africa had to offer. And I'm happy to say that the late Kofi Annan did not disappoint.
All right, thank you. Back again to Ambassador Sarki. In terms of accomplishments, I mean, ultimately he was United Nations Secretary General. There's no diplomatic position in the world, higher than that if you're an international civil servant. Yes. What did he achieve?
He achieved a lot in two areas. First, in terms of internal reorganization of the United Nations itself. In the 70s and 80s, the United Nations reached the doldrums, as it were, in terms of its credibility, acceptability, and impact on people in the world. The reputational aspects of the United Nations were being attacked by the major powers, and its inadequacies were exposed at every turn. When he became Secretary General in 1992, the first thing he did was not to take a tour of the world or make some grandiose pronouncements. He took a calm look at the United Nations and said, I need to restructure the system. So he introduced what was called the system-wide coherence. That was to restructure the UN, its functionality, to bring it closer to people around the world. And then he took on some systemic re-examination of the Charter of the United Nations to align it with the realities and objectives that were obtaining in the world at that time. He brought about, for instance, this idea of, having the, United Nations address its core functions, the Charter responsibilities. First, maintenance of international peace and security. Secondly, protection and promotion of human rights. And thirdly, sustainable development. How do you do that? You need to align all the functions of the United Nations towards those three streams. And he established the high-level panel of eminent persons, about 10 or 11 people, to look at the security structure, challenges in the world, and advise him. And they brought out this very fine document, about 104 pages, on global challenges in terms of security. The next one was actually, he said, is the United Nations meeting the expectations of the people? And he set up this called a panel to bring out a report called In Larger Freedom. And that In Larger Freedom recommended some far-reaching reform of the United Nations. For instance, the establishment of the Human Rights Council to replace the Commission on Human Rights was Kofi Annan's initiative and achievement. The establishment of the Peace-Building Commission to structure and coordinate all peace-building and peacekeeping efforts in the world, particularly in Africa, was his accomplishment. The reform of the United Nations, he gave momentum to that. He did not see its fruition, but he gave momentum to that. And a lot has been done in terms of the fundamental normative aspects of the reform of the United Nations. He also actually streamlined aid delivery, assistance, development assistance, HIV/AIDS, support in terms of resources and materials to countries. So I think Kofi Annan, more than any other Secretary General, touched the lives of people in many countries. And don't forget his persistent, dogged determination to avoid conflict. In Iraq, for instance, in Lebanon and Israel and other places. So these are lasting legacies that any African can be very happy and proud to attribute to Kofi Annan and to accept as our collective achievement.
Thank you, Ambassador. Dr. Melafia, these are lofty achievements that any African will be very proud of. So no doubt Africa has lost a son that everybody feels it, that this is a big son of Africa that has left us. Are we grooming others? You talked of grooming the other time. Are we grooming others to fill his position, especially in areas of peace building around the world and in Africa in particular, with all the conflicts going on?
Well, I'm not sure whether we are doing enough.
And should we be doing
we should be doing much more. Brilliant people don't just emerge like that. They are normally groomed, they are normally guided. Our elders, our leaders have a very important role to play in grooming a new generation of leaders. And actually, young men and young women that we can encourage to take up international civil service and international responsibility. And if I may add to what the ambassador has said, Kofi Annan had certain advantages. He was very long in the system. He was recruited as a budget officer as far back as 1962 at WHO. And from there, he moved to Secretariat. He served actually under 4 UN Secretaries General. He served under Utant of Burma. He served under Kurt Waldheim of Austria. He served under Perez de Cuellar of, I think, Argentina. And he served also under Boutros Ghali. So he knew the system inside out. And unlike the unfortunate Boutros Ghali, who was a brilliant professor, he had this attitude of lecturing everybody, which annoyed the Americans and alienated them. He came with a much more sober approach, very level-headed, and extraordinarily calm under pressure. One of his greatest achievements was the responsibility to protect, R2P, as it is called in the UN lexicon. And it was because actually he was the head of UN peacekeeping when the Rwanda genocide started, and nobody could do anything to protect it. He felt extremely bad. That was a major setback for him. So he introduced this doctrine of the responsibility to protect, and it has now become widely accepted. He contributed to setting up the International Criminal Court. He contributed to a peaceful settlement, a comprehensive settlement for Sudan, and a plan for eventual referendum and independence for Sudan. He did a lot in the area of development. The MDGs were his own idea. In 1999, he held a special conference just for Africa, and which actually led to a new compact for Africa. He did a lot in debt reduction. In fact, committing the international community to write off over $100 billion of debt to Africa. So he did a lot, and he was committed to peace and to justice, and I think that he has a great legacy.
Yeah, Dr. Melafia and Ambassador Usman Sharki, Kofi Annan himself has been heard to say that one of his most cherished ideas, I mean, he was modest enough not to refer to it as a legacy, was the Millennium Development Goals, exactly. Which have now become the Sustainable Development Goals, which focus attention on how to deal with extreme poverty on the globe. From your perspective, of course, on the eve of the 21st century, was the MDG the right kind of idea, to draw global attention once again to issues of global poverty, which were, of course, driving conflict all over the world?
Before, all the great powers of the world, the US, Britain, everybody, were doing their own thing. But he said, look, why don't the great donors as well as those at the receiving end meet together and agree on a set of international targets? This was the whole idea behind the MDGs. Now, they've succeeded in some countries, they've not succeeded in others. We have our own Amina Mohammed, who is #2 now. She was she was special assistant on MDGs, and she made a brilliant presentation. Ban Ki-moon, and he was very impressed, such that when she lost her job for some funny reason, You know, the Ban Ki-moon called her and made her Assistant Secretary General for the MDGs and to plan for successor to the MDGs. I met her during the course of her work, and she did very outstanding work, which, you know, was recognized, and she'd been made #2, which is a great position and a great honor for Nigeria. So the idea of having an internationally agreed targets is very important. Not all countries will meet those targets, but at least it sets the whole community to focus on meeting those targets and to mobilize resources, people, structures, and ideas in order to achieve those targets and goals.
Ambassador Usman Sarki, again, you know, we're talking now about the legacy of Kofi Annan, but has there been a proper evaluation of who didn't do what before the genocide unfolded in Rwanda? I do know, and I'm sure there are others who have that feeling that there's been some scapegoating of the UN, whose department or division Kofi Annan had some oversight over. Can he properly take the blame for that? Because every other person has, you know, seems to have said, oh, it was a failing of the UN. The big powers moved away. South Africa was breaking out of apartheid, you know, and then they had other occurrences elsewhere in the world. The US, of course, had said after Somalia in 1992, they were not going to have anything else to do with the African continent. Can Kofi Annan, can that be a blotch on this legacy?
No, I differ. I beg to differ with that sort of opinion, that an individual should be held responsible for what happened at the level of a nation state, the breakdown of law and order leading to genocide. It's a very complicated, you know, historical event that cannot be looked at from the prism of actually personal individual responsibility. Kofi Annan was actually heading the peacekeeping, you know, department of the United Nations. However, the United Nations, as a functionary and in the United Nations, you do not have the independence to singularly on your own take a decision to commit the rest of the member states to a particular action. Any action dealing with peace and security must be approved, endorsed, and cleared by the Security Council. And the Security Council, nobody can move in the Security Council if the 5 permanent powers did not sanction or give the green light to any action that could be taken. Kofi Annan strove and did everything possible to ensure that the United Nations Security Council responded in time, concretely, to the Rwandan incident. Unfortunately, certain members of the Security Council were not up and running at that time because of their own particular national outlook regarding the Rwanda situation. They had taken side, you know, apparently, even temperamentally and physically, with a faction, and they could not themselves act to prevent the conflict and the genocide. And at the same time, they could not allow the United Nations to swing in terms of mobilizing resources globally to end it. If you look at the Canadian general, you know, I've forgotten his name, is it Dolat or somebody of that sort? He wrote a book and he was very passionate and he condemned the role of the big powers. He did not actually go out to name Kofi Annan, but he said the United Nations failed, and the failure of the United Nations was the failure of the member states. The extent to which the United Nations functions is the extent to which its constituent parts agree to function, which is the member states.
Okay, thank you, Ambassador. We'll have some tweets now. And Dele Jack Solomon says, Africa and the world have lost one of their finest and best elder statesmen. Kofi Annan didn't just seek building a more just and peaceful world. He dedicated his life to doing it. His legacies shall last the test of time. May his gentle soul rest in perfect peace.
Festus Akimboyawa tweets, Kofi Annan was a trailblazer for African leadership at the United Nations. Although he's gone to rest, he will continue to speak to African leaders through his contributions to Africa's progress, a clear and eloquent description of the greatest inheritance African leaders would cherish.
And Victor Ohiosroma says the passing away of Kofi Annan, the former Secretary General of the UN, is sad. He brought pride and dignity to Africa and the world. His legacies will live on. My deepest condolences to his immediate family, Ghana, Africa, and the world.
And Amambwala has this tweet: Kofi Annan was a legend. His life and time will forever remain evergreen in the annals of history. His life should be taught to youngsters so they can learn more about service to humanity.
Africa has lost a rare gem. That's according to Sonny Michael Omakochi, an icon, an ambassador of peace and authority, Africa's pride, another Nelson Mandela of our time, and of course a world figure. He has left an indelible mark in Africa and the world in general that's difficult to fill. I salute him.
Mike Ayakwa tweets: Kofi Annan performed positively well during his tenure in different aspects of human endeavors that include health, education, etc. Most importantly, during his tenure, many hitherto belligerent nations were able to embrace peace. All right, so those are the comments that we can take. And on that note, we'd like to thank our two guests who have been with us for this very short tribute session to the late Kofi Annan, who was Secretary General of the United Nations. He passed away at the weekend at the age of 80. First, we'd like to thank former Deputy Governor of Central Bank of Nigeria and also Public Affairs Analyst Dr. Obadiah Melafia. Dr. Melafia, thanks a lot for being around on Good Morning Nigeria. And Ambassador Usman Sarki, of course, he was Nigeria's Deputy Permanent Representative at the United Nations in New York. Ambassador Sarki, thanks a lot for being around on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you, it's a pleasure.
All right, so let's go over now to our complimentary segments and sports.
That's Good Morning Nigeria for today. Thank you very much for joining us. I am Sheung Olagunju.
And I'm Kingsley Osadola. I'd like to appreciate you as well for being with us on the program. We're back tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Until then, enjoy the rest of your holiday.